Regulation. So just to let you know who I am, if you're new to the channel, my name's Ashley Bloxham. I'm a therapist. I specialise in childhood and trauma. I'm an addictions counsellor. I've overcame addiction. I know it's like to have loved ones who struggle with addiction. And also I've studied it right the way up to PhD level. So today I want to talk about the idea that addiction serves a purpose, and one of the main purposes is to regulate our nervous system. So often we have some kind of childhood trauma, or we've not felt comfortable, or maybe we're a sensitive person, so maybe an undiagnosed mental health disorder, and we feel dysregulated. And addiction is an attempt to regulate our nervous systems. So if we recognise the purpose that addiction serves, which a big part of it is, escape and stuff, but also regulating the nervous system, what we can do is we can start to find other ways to regulate your nervous system. So I talk about this all the time, but I thought I would give some clear ways to do it. So one of the first things that we can do is routine. Our nervous systems really do well with routine, and it might just be small routines. So I wake up at the same time every day, go to sleep at the same time every day. When I wake up, I have a cold shower and just do that every day. Or for me, really simple. I know it's a lot of lads on my channel, so maybe not all the lads will want to be doing this, but I always wake up, I make me cup of coffee, I sit down, I do my makeup. That's my little routine. Do my skincare. So just little routines throughout the day does really well for regulating the nervous system, because we thrive on predictability, and actually uncertainty is really dysregulating for the brain and for the nervous system. The next thing to think about is two things. So we've got proprioception and vestibular. These two things are really important. So if we think of proprioception as pressure and we think of vestibular as movement. So proprioception grounds us. So if we think about pressure, there was somebody I knew who said that when they carry shopping bags, the weight of it on the shoulders makes them feel grounded. So that is because you're putting pressure on your joints. So carrying something heavy, it could be something like just planting your feet on the floor and like putting your weight through. It could be leaning up against a wall and like feeling the pressure, a tight hug. So my son, when he's dysregulated, I hug him. So if we're feeling dysregulated, think proprioception, pressure. If we're feeling like we are like going scatty and it's getting a lot, then think about vestibular, which is movement. So if we're up a height, rhythmic movement brings you down, and if you're feeling low and depressed, rhythmic movement brings you up. So it just brings you into alignment. So that's why you get kids who rock. So you can, if we feel like we've got a craving, we don't need to be rocking like mental people, but you can just do a slight rock, or you could do something like tapping where it's in rhythm. You could do dancing if you've got some space to do some dancing. So it's anything like that. And if you do something like martial arts, you're actually getting movement and pressure at the same time. So that can be really good. So yeah, try and think about those things. So routine, movement, rhythmic movement and pressure are going to help you regulate your nervous system. And if you do this every day, you'll be a bit better to cope with cravings, etc. Right, those are heavy. What's heavy? Hi everyone. Hi Iron Wolf. Hello, my name is Sebastian from Argentina. You're beautiful, thank you. Hello to Argentina. I love the voice, thank you. Haran, hi, how are you? Aween, do you like Guinness? No, I've never really liked Guinness. It tastes like metal. I'm not a fan. I don't split the J over here. I don't even drink anymore, actually. Remember D60. I like addictions, the good ones at least. Well, addiction, if you enjoy it and it's not a problem, actually isn't addiction. That's just you doing whatever the thing is. So you wouldn't call everybody who drinks alcohol an alcoholic, or everybody who watches porn, you wouldn't say you've got porn addiction. It's just, if you're doing it and you like it, it's not a problem. You don't want to stop it, it's just not addiction. So yeah. Air Crew Boy. I'm American and I joined the military at 18 and then got out when I was 24. Opened a restaurant and now I'm a millionaire. I love that. I love that for you. I used to work with veterans. I was head of veteran counselling for a really good charity in the northeast of England. So fuck school. Oh, yeah, this ain't like a normal school, don't worry. Right, Jim C, I'm addicted to you. There's worse addictions in life. Where am I from? I'm from Newcastle in England. I am a therapist though, so if anyone's got any questions around mental health and addiction, feel free to let us know. Thank you whoever's liking us as well. I can see little happy faces come up. Last life, she said she collects her toenails clippings. I did not say that. I'm like seriously weird with toenail clippings as well. Creep us out. Is this a secular humanist channel? No, it's I don't know what that means, to be honest with you, but I'm a therapist and this is a channel on addiction and mental health. So if anybody, it's around addiction, but mental health and addiction are the same thing. So if anyone's got any questions, you've got access to a therapist. Use it wisely, not talk about toenail clippings, guys. Do I work with OCD? Yeah, I have worked with OCD. So I don't diagnose. Are you wanting some information, like some advice on how to tackle OCD, Spencer? But yeah, I have worked with OCD. I've worked with a lot of different things. Like, so OCD is a manifestation of something going on. So we're talking in the beginning, I was talking about how dysregulation of the nervous system is like, so if we have addiction, it's probably because our nervous systems are dysregulated due to some kind of trauma or undiagnosed mental health disorder. So if you think of like addiction like a symptom, OCD is also a symptom. We also have eating disorders as a symptom. So it can all manifest in different ways. So yeah, I have worked with it. Are you a psychologist or psychiatrist? No, I'm not either. I'm a therapist. So psychologists and psychiatrists diagnose. I don't diagnose. I work with people who are struggling. So I help them. I just help them basically work out if you think about therapists, so if your brain is a tangle and your life's a bit of a tangle, you'll come to therapy and I'll help you untangle it. So we'll work together. I don't diagnose stuff. Right, I have TDS. Can you help me? What's TDS stand for, Joe? What is TDS? I assume it's some kind of diagnosis. So Toll, I don't know how you say your name, you're just going to get called Toll. Female borderline personality disorder, late 40s. Yeah, it's getting more and more common to get diagnosed in later life. I've been diagnosed in my mid-30s with different things. So borderline personality disorder is a really tough one as well. But I do think if you're struggling with borderline personality disorder, again, learning to regulate your nervous system is going to be really crucial in part of your healing journey. I don't know what you've done around your BPD, but regulating your nervous system and learning to regulate your emotions. So I would say a good place to start, if you're just doing things for yourself, so this is like more of a self-help route, I would look into emotional intelligence. So I would do you could do an online quiz, which is free. I sort of try and scam you, but go for a free one for an AI test and work out what your emotional intelligence is, because it's split into different areas. And what you can do is you can work out what different things where do I need to strengthen? So where are my strengths and where could I do with a bit of practice? And that really helped me with like my ADHD and bipolar, just strengthening my emotional intelligence, because the more we can be aware of our emotions and learn to just observe them and think about their impact, etc., the easier relationships are going to be. And BPD is all about your relationship with yourself and others. So yeah. Russell saying mental health is boring. What's your favourite flavour of ice cream? Oh, mint chocolate chip. Absolutely, I'm such a grandma. Frederick, I used to have a heroin addiction. I'm very happy you do this. Oh, thank you. I'm really happy that you've gotten over heroin addiction as well. It is categorised as the worst addiction you can have. So some boy or girl. I feel like Frederick's a boy, for getting over that. So I love that for you. Mr. Cheeseproof, therapists suffer some of the highest mental illnesses over time due to exposure. Be strong, lady. Yeah, I think one of the things with therapists is, and I'll put myself in this category, is a lot of therapists have a lot of mental health issues themselves. Not all, like I don't want to like fully stereotype, but if you're overly empathetic and you're getting into it, if you feel like that's your calling, it's probably because you haven't really felt like you probably felt like you needed someone in your corner and you needed someone to help you with your mental health. We tend to project things. So I think a lot of therapists probably start out with mental health, whether that's like, I didn't realise I had mental health issues until I went into training to be a therapist. I thought people naturally came to us. I was naturally empathetic. I seemed like the right role, and it turned out actually a little bit traumatized myself. And I think this is a lot of therapists. So I think it's really important for therapists to do personal development, which is a big part of learning to be a therapist. And if you're learning to do personal development and you're leaning into supervision, so you're supposed to sit down with a supervisor, that does stop you from going into mental health, but you have to be responsible for that yourself. And obviously it's up to the therapist to be responsible. Thanks for ever who's liking. I keep seeing people liking. That's really kind. Side question, how do you like your eggs? Scrambled. I make them in the pan. We don't even have heroin anymore. It'll is say, I'm getting called It'll. I don't think that's your name. We don't even have heroin anymore. Do you just mean it's bashed so much? Princess Jessica, I'm mad at you somehow. Oh, that's a good one. So if we're mad at someone, especially somebody you don't know, that's usually what we call transference. So transference is a little bit like projection. So maybe I'm reminding you of somebody that you haven't liked or something. So I'll be like a symbol or a representation of something that's made you mad. So I always think if I don't know someone and they're making us mad, that's like information. It's actually a really good healing point. So maybe I'll remind you of a person who's pissed you off. Maybe it's saying something which doesn't resonate with you, and then that's like a way to explore it. But there'll be something going on underneath, because if we feel a strong reaction to somebody we don't know, it's usually transference. And you can look into transference as well. It happens a lot with therapists. Actually, we get trained to be aware of transference, because somebody might think that you remind them of someone and then they project that onto you. And then as a therapist, we need to be careful that we're not then falling into that role and responding, which is called counter-transference. She's not psycho, her eyes are alive, Roxanne. Yeah, I mean, I've got bipolar, so I've had psychosis, and with mania, you can tell off your eyes, but I'm not manic at the moment. But I can be a little bit psycho sometimes, not by choice. Andrew, as a therapist, was there meant to be more to that, Andrew? Are you a therapist as well? So Indian's saying how to stop overthinking. That's a really good one. So we can't stop ourselves from thinking. This was the illusion that I went into, was thinking, I'm just going to calm my thoughts. So if we calm our nervous systems down, the rapid thoughts will stop, because thinking rapidly is a symptom of anxiety, because everything speeds up so that we can respond to a perceived threat. So anxiety is a response to threat, fight or flight. So we can calm our nervous system and it will calm our thoughts. But on average, we have 60,000, either 60,000 or 66,000 thoughts a day as a human being. So I think one of the things isn't about how to stop overthinking. It's about accepting that as a human being, I think. And some people think more than others, so we can try a little bit and bring it down, but I would challenge how you think. So stop overthinking, but make your thoughts positive, and become your own best friend. So there's something called NATs in counselling. NATs stand for negative automatic thoughts. And the word automatic is really key in this. So we have a lot of thoughts which are automatic, and we can't really change too much, a little bit, but not too much, the fact that we automatically think. But what we can do is we can change whether the thoughts are negative or positive. So I heard this, Fern Cotton was calling it the shitty committee in our head. So you get to choose if you have a shitty committee in your head, or what I like to call the positive vibe tribe. So you can start to pay attention to your thoughts. If they belong to the shitty committee, fire them. No longer hired. And try and change them from the positive vibe tribe in your head. That looks like bigging yourself up. It looks like cutting yourself slack. It looks like giving yourself grace for being a messy human being. We all make mistakes. We all put our foot in our mouths. Even me, I'm a therapist. Do it probably more than most because I'm also just Ashley Bloxham. And yeah, just giving ourselves grace. So just, I would change your thoughts as opposed to stopping them. So roast chicken, I've got Weatherspoon's addiction. My family and friends are distraught. As somebody who's had a ketamine addiction, I would say on the scale, put a bit of dash of perspective in here. I feel like there's worse things in life. Right. So Solid Tank is saying to Indian, we can't stop thoughts coming, of course, but we can stop ourselves from going down the rabbit hole. With practice, it gets easier. Yeah. So that is a really good point. And if we think about rabbit holes, so what we can do is we can put, if we're ruminating, so there's different types of thoughts. If we're ruminating on something, that's anxiety. So like I said, calm the nervous system. And then it's also habitual. So anxiety tends to be habitual. So like general anxiety disorder, it's like we're in a cycle of habitually worrying. So what we can do is say, right, I'm going to give myself put a pin in it. I'm going to allow myself a time to think about it, but it's going to be a set amount of time. So you can put a timer on at a set time. So that way you're learning to just practice not going down rabbit holes and getting a bit of control on it. So I'm going to overthink, but I'm going to overthink when I've finished work, not now. And I'm going to have a half an hour timer. So you can set half an hour timer. Or I'm going to hash it out with a friend or phone the Samaritans or even AI, but for half an hour. And yeah, absolutely right what Solid Tank is saying. Practice does get better. Right. Russell Curry's saying heroin, no thanks. Yeah, I'm with that. Let's all say no thanks to heroin. I've seen it destroy so many people's lives. It's really hard addiction. I don't envy people who've gone through heroin addiction. Mr. Boston, you should try drugs. I have tried many a drug. I have tried far too many drugs. I think what I'm trying now is to just live a life not trying drugs. Been quite successful for nearly 4 years. So Ugo is saying, how do you become more extroverted? That's a good question. So we're born with a temperament. So everybody has a temperament they're born with. So some people are naturally more introverted or extroverted, shy, whatever. So we all have a bit of a template, like a personality template. So I think, first of all, accepting that like I'm naturally more introverted, that's okay. But then just think about, okay, but just because we're born with a temperament doesn't mean that we can't change it. So what I would say is, be accepting of who you are instead of putting yourself down. Like, I'm introverted, that's great. The world needs both, extrovert and introvert. But have the aim of, I'm going to be an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert. So we're going to try and widen the circle. And that looks like just doing tiny little things. So think of it like exposure therapy. Start off small. So I'm going to start getting comfortable socialising with random people. So that might be just starting chatting to the person next to you in the queue for the shop or whatever. Or if you go on the bus, just chatting to the person who's sat next to you. So just get comfortable, widening that circle with mini interactions with strangers, and reflect on it. So every time we do exposure therapy, where we're exposing ourselves slowly but surely, reflect on it and ask yourself, like, was that as painful as I thought it would be? And just slowly widen it and just keep practicing, but also be accepting, like, introverts are cool. I love introverts. I think they're mysterious. So we just try and be an extroverted introvert is the game, and just slowly widen and practice. We can practice anything. That's the thing. If we want a new identity, it's just little habitual steps that we do. We practice it for a little bit until it creates new neuroplasticity. So I am now okay with having little natters with strangers. And then you layer another habit on top of it, practice that. Then it's like, I'm okay with whatever the next thing is. And just keep layering out these habits and keep practicing it. Eventually, you'll rewire your brain into a different person. We all can do it. So it's just about repetition, practicing, and just doing little minute steps. So just little, move the goalpost slightly each time. Mr. Chessie, what do you do? What do you do when only relief you feel is when you self-medicate to lower self to levels comparable to most around? So I assume, are you talking about addiction when you're saying self-medicate? If it's around addiction, then what is happening? So first of all, when we flood our brains with dopamine, so repeatedly doing something that brings us joy, so that might be doom scrolling. It doesn't need to be substances, although substances and like alcohol, drugs do flood your brain with more dopamine. But when we're flooding our brain with dopamine, the brain and body's always trying to achieve balance. So our dopamine receptors basically start to fill up, there's like loads of little holes. It starts to block some of the holes, so less dopamine is being produced. Which, what that means is dopamine motivates us in life. So it's like the hormone that motivates. And we lose motivation outside of the thing that we're self-medicating with. So usually we'd be motivated to go and see friends, we'd be motivated to get out and have a walk or whatever it is, and we lose the capacity to be motivated outside the addiction, because that's flooding our brains with dopamine, and everything else, our dopamine receptors have down-regulated, which means everything else feels flat. So you're kind of in a catch-22 where you're saying self-medicating, probably felt pretty shit and not feeling the sparkle in life to begin with, then started self-medicating, which felt good for a while. Now it's exasperated the situation. So I would say it's about slowly bringing it down. Slowly bringing the thing you're self-medicating down gently, and preferably with a professional, so that you can start to like change how you're producing dopamine. Then also working on the thing that caused it in the first place, and working on stabilizing your nervous system and emotional regulation. Italian, I'm a certified addiction counsellor and I am training to be a psychotherapist. I love that. I think as well, like, being a psychotherapist and having an addiction background is a really cool, a cool mix. I think the world is going to be lucky. So, okay, Italo, what would you say your top tip for people who is struggling with addiction? What would you say is the thing that your clients find most useful, if you don't mind answering? I was love it when we have other counsellors on the channel. Right, I'm just going to scroll around to the bottom and try and give everyone a chance, because there's a lot of comments. So Frederick, when I started to ask questions to random people, it made it easier than just blurting stuff out. Yeah, you can get little scripts. So if we're talking about that, getting comfortable, moving from an introvert to an extroverted introvert, we can, asking questions. You can have little scripts. little things that you can see. Yeah, that's good little tip there. Shay, I'm just gonna call you, I can't say your names. I love being an introvert. Once I got to know myself in solitude, I enjoy my own company. I'm fine living with just my 2 dogs. Yeah, I love it. So I used to be an extrovert. So I'm ADHD, very extroverted. And when I stopped my addiction and became a single parent, like you, I was forced to be in solitude. And at first I hated it. I hated just being by myself and with my own thoughts. But I started being proactive and just like doing little hobbies, and yeah, just starting to get to know myself and doing a lot of self-help and stuff. And yeah, I'm now an introverted extrovert. I love it. I love me time. So yeah, I agree. So Warren, I studied body language and got a certain level of certification. I won my freedom from HMP on my journey of truth. I don't know what's HMP, Warren. Studying body language is really useful. I say especially for people in addiction. Not all people in addiction, but a lot of people who are in addiction, a common thread that I hear, not everyone, is that they're people pleasers, and or they've always had like, I don't know the professional way to say this, so I'm going to say the normal way, but they've always had a knobhead in their life. Like they've always got a dickhead. And I think one of the things that we struggle with in addiction, because often you're coming from some kind of chaotic childhood, whether that's abuse or whether that's just you're very sensitive and there's just some kind of, usually it's childhood related. And what that means, if it's childhood issues, often attachment styles are a bit skewed, so we don't know how to have healthy relationships. So one of the things, so when body language, if you're a people pleaser and you don't know how to discern and you're always like letting people in your life who aren't that healthy, learning body language and micro expressions can be really helpful in your discernment journey. So you can start to really read, how safe is this person? Is this a healthy person to have in my life? So I think that's a really good skill for anyone to learn, but especially I think if you're one of the people pleasing addicts. Yeah. Aragon, using humour against rude people. Yeah, I do it all the time when people are rude with on the channel. I just like, because I think we can if we're choosing to see the funny side in people being rude, it's instantly disarming. If not for them, for us, because like when we laugh, we produce oxytocin, and also just having that slight amusement at people being rude, it just kind of, it means you're not absorbing their negativity, because often when people are being rude, it's all about them. It's their internal world that they're like spitting out onto you. So I always try and see either the positive side or the funny side of it, and just having amusement helps. But not just with rude people. I just try and have amusement at life. Like if you can sit there and find life amusing, like the audacity of people, the craziness of people, of this human race, the systems we're living in, it just helps you feel a little bit kind of more relaxed. It really is a helpful skill. So yeah, I love it. Right. English are so proper until you close the doors. I mean, I wouldn't say that all English are proper. If you live in the north of England, I don't think you would think many people are proper. Like, I think the least, if you walk around the north of England, like I'm from Newcastle, I don't think there's many people who are proper at all. It's just absolute vaggies or charvas, whatever you want to call them. Right, my only addiction is cigarettes. It's so hard to stop. So I try to keep busy with hobbies. Picking up a pen and holding it has been useful. Any tips on trying to stop is definitely appreciated. Yeah, so I'm literally about to tackle smoking. I've stopped smoking a few times, and first of all, the very naive thing that I've done, which hasn't, if I'm really honest, I'm just being kidding myself, because we all have that voice when we're addicted, which tries to talk us into it. So the stupid thing I've told myself is that, oh, I can just have a cigarette when I drink, or I vape now, so I can just vape when I go on holiday, and absolutely relapsed. Now, to bring you to a technique, so that little voice in addiction, you can give it a name, so your alter ego. So you might want to call it, I don't know, so for me it's Trashly. Try and think of going back to him using a bit of a funny name. So name that little addicted voice and start to pay attention to it. So it'll be like, oh, I'm stressed, I need a cigarette. Like, oh, I've just ate, I need a cigarette. And just start to observe it at first, then start to challenge it, then start to really fight back and say, no, we're not doing that, we're going to do something different. I'm going to distract myself. But yeah, smoking is really hard because it's chemically addictive and psychologically addictive. I would tackle it for smoking, tackle the habit one first. So for me, when I used to smoke cigarettes, it would be as soon as I got in the car, that would be my first cigarette of the day, driving to work. So that would be the cigarette that I would tackle before stop smoking. The next one would be after food. I'd always have a cigarette after food. So try and tackle the habitual ones first. Also exercise some control. So I'm not going to say no forever, but I'm going to say no for now, and just get used to feeling a craving, getting to the end of it and reflecting on it. She looks like Pam on The Office, but hotter. I've not seen The Office. If you're saying but hotter, Pam sounds like a munter. I'm calling it. I don't know who Pam is, but she doesn't sound... If you're having to say but hotter, she sounds like a munter. I feel like it's a backhanded compliment. Kyle, try smoking weed for 14 years. I can't even fly without it. Yeah. So are you smoking weed because you're saying smoking with tobacco? Because that makes it even harder. So I would remove the tobacco first. Again, try and just cut it down. So just think of it like slowly but surely bringing it down. But also look at what's the purpose. So for me, smoking, when you listen to that voice, like smoking for me is when I'm stressed. It's the first thing I do. So like, okay, how am I going to learn to de-stress? So I've been tackling that before I quit it. So for ketamine, that was my drug of choice I was addicted to. Ketamine was good because it sedated my brain. Like, I didn't like who I was. I didn't like being inside my head. And ketamine just disconnected us from myself. It just sedated us. So learning to love myself was key. So what's the purpose of weed? Hi, Guy. How you doing? Guy, I've seen your message, so I'm getting back to messages today, so don't think I'm ignoring you. It just takes us a hot minute to reply. I think you said something about chatting though, so absolutely can. But yeah, I'll reply to your message. Darren G, I love ketamine. And Aragon is saying, Ket, I was in the bath, felt like I was floating, was strange. Oh God, I remember swimming on Ket when I lived, because I discovered ketamine in Ibiza, and swimming on Ket, it felt like jelly. I also love ketamine, but I was also very addicted to it, so let's be real, if we're addicted to something, we're going to love it. We're not going to be doing it because we hate it. We don't commit to something that we don't like. So I also used to love ketamine. Ketamine is so fucking addictive. It is so addictive. And I was very much addicted to it. It was awful. And I know people who've ended up with catheters because they love Ket that much. Because that's the problem. If we love something too much, dopamine is going to be driving us toward it. Yeah. 1 week off crack and heroin, struggling with alcohol, bad though, trying to get into rehab. First appointment tomorrow, love your work. I'm so fucking glad you've managed to get an appointment for rehab, Christopher. That is a big comorbidity, but I love that you've got to that point where you're stopping. So you're struggling with alcohol, just alcohol trigger the heroin and the crack? Or are you tackling the worst ones first? Are you just wanting to... And also, can I just say, if you don't know, Christopher, you probably do, but if you don't, don't just stop alcohol. Make sure you're doing it with a professional and you're reducing down calmly. So it might be, if you're struggling with alcohol, and obviously this isn't a replacement for whatever you're getting support with. But if you think about alcohol, you might want to do the Sinclair method, or you might want to, if you can get into rehab where what's the word? My brain just went blank. Detox. So it might be worth tackling the alcohol by not needing it anymore. So you can, there's a type of tablet, I don't know if you know about it. It's the Sinclair method, talks about it, which I've recently learned about, someone told us. But there is a type of tablet which stops the effects of alcohol. So that might be a route, or detox, like you're saying, because just stopping alcohol is, one, fatal, it can be dangerous, so it should be done with professionals. But two, if you can just take away the impact that it has on you, it'll probably be a bit easier. Yeah, pro-change naltrexone, I can't even say that. Whatever pro-charge just said. But yeah, it's a tablet that stops the feeling of alcohol. So that might be the route, because you are tackling heroin and crack, which is fucking immense that you're doing that. And sometimes we put pressure on ourselves to do everything at once, and actually that might not be the route for you. But I'm glad you've got your appointment, and yeah, research it a bit before you go in so you understand where you would feel comfortable doing it, because you're the expert as well as them. That's one thing I'll say. Any interaction you would have with experts, go in, get yourself briefed up, like, what do I want my recovery to look like, and then go in and have that as a two-way street. But I love that for you. Louise is saying Coke, Xanax, alcohol and weed was my downfall. Yeah, it's often, look, a lot of us do have a mixture of things that we're addicted to. So for me, it was ketamine and sleepers. So it wasn't one type of thing that knocked us out. So Xanax was my favourite, I'm not going to lie. But if I couldn't get that, it would be metazapine, yeah, loads of different things. Just whatever I could get me mitts on, Valium, Zoppies. Right, let's see. Aragon and microdose mushrooms after I stopped drinking was good for a while, but you can't become reliant on anything. That's when it goes downhill. Yeah, that's one of the things around psilocybin is a replacement that Gabor Mate spoke about, and he's like really pushing for psychedelic assisted therapy. But he's also said that we can become more reliant on it. I'm sure it was him who said it. Starting to second guess myself now. But yeah, we can become more reliant on it, and that's the thing. But also, we need to think about, I think it's always, so like, it's really important to think about harm reduction at the forefront of everything, as opposed to abstinence. I think harm reduction first. That might look like abstinence for us. It might look like going on to something different to support us in that, whether that's a medication that we're prescribed or whatever. Right, Mitchell, 18 years weed free, 1 year alcohol free, starting to love myself more and make choices for myself and not others. Love that. And would you say that you started to love yourself and then was able to stop that alcohol, or do you think you stopped that alcohol then started to love yourself? I genuinely think that if anyone's going to have successful addiction recovery, you have to learn to love yourself and make choices for yourself. And I just genuinely don't think people are going to be able to sustain recovery, if we don't learn to love yourself. And it sounds so woo-woo, but it's so true, because often, you've got to admit we're not loving ourselves fully if we're sitting in a life of addiction. We're trying to escape either ourselves and or our reality, our external reality. So Mitchell, what would you say has been your top tip for learning to love yourself? Because I feel like loving yourself's just like an ideology or a concept. What would you say your top tip is? And anybody else for that matter who's on a self-love journey. Can you say you can change your fate, please? You absolutely can change your fate. I would say fate in the most simplistic term, if we're not looking at it spiritually, and I am spiritual, but it's not a faith-based channel. So fate is, so if you think of that saying, madness is continuing the same thing and expecting different results. So we've all heard that saying, or most of us have. So fate is neuroplasticity. If we all do things habitually, we all respond in the same way that we've always responded to stuff because we predict what's happening and then respond accordingly. So these are defense mechanisms, coping strategies, the way that we interact with people. So if it's left unchecked, we are fated to continue repeating cycles because of our neuroplasticity in our brain. If we start to learn how to love ourselves, learn how to have healthier relationships, aka learn to improve emotional intelligence and self-love, then we'll start to change things. So we can change our fate, and it starts one little habit at a time on how we relate to ourselves and others. And we create neuroplasticity through that. So yeah, fate is neuroplasticity. Let's create new neural pathways, guys. Joey, do you think people like us will ever receive an apology? I'm yet to receive an apology for how I was treated as an addict. I think the person that we need to apologise to is ourselves. If we are waiting on an apology for somebody else, I would imagine, I don't know your situation, you know you best, but speaking from personal experience, the reason why I was needing an apology from someone is because I was still internalising whatever happened. So I was still internalising it and absorbing the impact of whatever they did. So what helped me is I started to apologise to myself. I started apologising to myself for believing what they were saying to be true. I started apologising to myself for believing that I deserved the things that have happened to us, the traumatic things that's happened to us. And I started apologising to myself. And the more I forgave myself, the more I didn't need that external apology, because I started being on my own side and also started realising that that's about them. Like, if so, that's all to do with their beliefs, their upbringing, their childhood, their whatever, their defence mechanisms. Somebody who's hurting us, like, hurt people hurt, and sick attracts sick. So like, clearly I didn't have very good sense of self, so I was attracting sick people, and these were hurt people who were hurting me. So yeah, the more I started to love myself, the less I needed the apology. So I hope that makes, I don't know if that resonates with you. Obviously, like I say, if you know yourself best, but that's what my thoughts on it. The amazing Raz, having been an alcoholic addict for many years, now that I'm clean and carry a lot of shame and self-hate, has been one of the toughest aspects of sobriety, find a way to love myself. Right, the amazing Raz, one of the biggest things I do on this channel, and the reason why I do it, is debunk why addiction occurs in the first place. We hold on shame around addiction because we blame ourselves for being an addict in the first place. So first of all, we need to realise that I didn't choose to be an addict. It was, I was always going to be an addict, because an addict is an attempt to soothe some kind of, it's a form of self-medication. It's a solution to whatever the problem is, like the root cause of the addiction. So first of all, look into why addiction occurs. And what you will find in all of the research is that addiction occurs because of often childhood trauma, or some kind of undiagnosed mental health disorder, or a trauma in later life. And all of the research points to that. I would look into Gabor Mate. He's really good, and he'll help you understand it as well. So first of all, learn about addiction, why it occurs. Second of all, we do rack up what I call a shame debt in addiction. So when we're under the influence of addiction, we start to accumulate shame because of our behaviours. So for me, my biggest shame that I dealt with was the fact that I was using whilst pregnant. I was using whilst I was a new mum, like I was relapsing, and yeah, I started to become really selfish. I was lying, I was doing all these things that are common when we're under the influence. So again, learn to give yourself grace. If you are sober now, so you've came out of being an alcoholic, alcohol really changes how we show up in the world. If we learn one, I didn't choose to be an addict, I was self-medicating. Now I'm choosing to be sober. You are not the person that you were when you were under the influence of alcohol and addict. You're just not that person. That was who you became when you were an addict. So calling it a name can be helpful. And also remind yourself that I didn't choose to be there. I was behaving in a way that was understandable because I was addicted. It changes my brain chemistry. Now I'm no longer an addict. I need to forgive myself. I need to cut myself some slack for living a life that was predestined. And I'm choosing to do differently, and I need to be grateful for myself for doing that. And I think that's the way to go around it, and just keep saying you're not who you were. You're doing amazing. You didn't deserve to be an addict, so I'm going to consciously try to forgive myself. So yeah, I've only done 46 minutes, but I've been needing the toilet for about 20 minutes of that. So I'm actually going to go, guys. It's been a really nice chat with you all, though. I will say as well, the Amazing Raz, I'm doing a free addiction recovery group, which is around learning to love yourself and forgive yourself and give yourself grace. So if you'd want to do that, go to my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk, and you're welcome to join, and I can teach you some strategies on how to release that shame, because it's all around that. Because the thing is, what you've got to remember, Amazing Raz, and anyone who's listening, the truth of the matter is a lot of people, the majority of people, don't continue in sobriety. So like, a lot of people relapse, and I think one of the biggest things why people relapse is we just remove the addiction and we don't learn to love ourselves and forgive ourselves and regulate our nervous systems and our emotions. So it is absolutely crucial that you find it in yourself to forgive yourself, because if not, you're triggering yourself. And if you're triggering yourself with shame, you're more likely to relapse. So I think a rule of thumb is, I've got to forgive myself, because the person who's sober deserves to continue being sober. And the only way that I can make up for anything that's happened under the influence is by being sober. So I have to find it in my heart to forgive myself, because it's an instant trigger. So I think, remember, you're not the person you were, and the person you are now needs you to forgive yourself in whatever way that takes, and I can certainly help you. Anyways, I'm going to go because I'm very, very much need the toilet. If I've missed your comments, feel free to send us a message on my website, schoolofaddiction.co.uk, and I'll pick it up there and reply. I'm also starting a free addiction group that anyone's welcome to join. Again, just go on my website, and I'll be back tonight at 9 p.m. So I go live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So I'll see you tonight, and bye, Guy. I've just seen you there. I'll see you soon. Bye.